influencer, TikToker, entrepreneur, OnlyFanser. At this point, I'm just adding ERs. Show stalker, Gypsy Sister Kelly Lynn. She's sponsoring the show. And all you little boys who hit me up in my DMs, look at that, man. She's in a bikini. Go pay for it. Go pay for it. Go over to her Instagram. You want to know what Kelly's doing? Guys and girls, because girls, you can learn what she's doing. She's making a lot of money. You go over to @theGypsySister. You click on the link in her bio. After you look at all her pictures, a lot of good content. She's putting out content. She's an influencer. She's crushing TikTok. So you get into that Instagram, and then you click on it. And then you got your links. You got all your links now. You can see everything she's doing. Everything. She's doing merch. She'll pick up a shirt or a pillow. You want to sleep next to her? That's what I do. I got 6 of them in my bed. TikToker. You want to see her dance a little bit? See her dance on the railroad? Go there. She's an entrepreneur, an influencer, a TikToker. We're doing a podcast together. She's got a webpage coming. Should have asked me to do it. It'd be done. And she's a counselor. Girls, you want to learn how to do what she's doing? Go check it out. All information is at Gypsy Sister on Instagram. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for finally taking the step towards OnlyFans. And you can go check it out, guys. Get out of my DMs and get into hers. Thank you, Kelly. fiveanddimeeaston.com. They have their website officially up. You can shop most of their stuff online. They also have Fucked. They have Fucked in the store. I think they're the only one allowed to sell Fucked out of their store. It's 484-544-4719. That's at Five and Dime Easton on social media. These guys are great. I mean, they're killing it. It's the best skate shop, in my opinion, in the area. They have a lot of cool stuff there. Both the owners are rad. I stop in when I can. They're open Monday through Friday, 11 to 7, Saturday, 10 to 7, and Sunday, 11 to 5. There is someone always there to help you out with your needs. You can check their inventory off the website. You can check out some videos they got on there, and they're doing some cool things. Their social media is awesome. They support a lot of local skaters in the area, and they're growing. I'm excited to be a part of them growing. I'm excited to help them out. They're helping me out. It's a good relationship, and I push Five and Dime Easton because they're the best skate shop in the area. Check them out. BTG Blasting. My man, Pat Cunningham, offering you pressure washing, disinfecting, acid washing, and rust removal. It is a high pressure washing business, bringing your stuff back to glory. He does anything from houses all the way to having him come into the studio. He comes down to the studio on a schedule and he disinfects the studio, and we are certifiably clean, and it just covers all the bases. So with the things that are going on now, you're going to need somebody like this. He's got a sticker out front. I am certifiably clean down here. He also offers free estimates on all your needs. He can do corporate and at home. You can reach him at 484-241-1711 and btgblasting@gmail.com. He just started this business and it is taking off. I'm super excited for him, and I'm super excited that he's a sponsor of the show. And you can check out BTG Blasting on social media for all of your pressure washing, disinfecting, acid wash, and rust removal needs. It's high pressure washing, bringing your stuff back to glory. He offers many things, and you need to check him out. Eric K. Dowdle, defense attorney. We had him on the show, and what crazy stories this guy's had. He's helped a ton of people over the years, and if you're looking for help, he is your guy. You can contact them at 610-882-3000, and it's ekdefense.com. Do you have a pending court case? Do you have a court appearance and need a defense lawyer? Do you need proper representation? Felony, misdemeanor, drug offense, assault, homicide, DUI, traffic violation, appeals. Reach out to Eric. Check out the podcast we did with him as well. It has his whole story on there. If you need help, Eric is here to help you. He sponsors the show. We appreciate it. He's going to be doing a monthly thing with us. Eric will be a part of the family now. Thank you for sponsoring. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Never Again radio episode. I don't even remember. We're just going to jump into it. I know you're a little nervous. Is your first time doing a podcast or anything like that?
Yes, definitely.
Saylor and Company, what is it? Saylor Company Butcher, or what's the full name?
Saylors and Company.
Yeah. I heard about you through Oh, so many different people over the years. One was Chris Muma, the other one was Mitch, and then just in general, like my friends who were doing competition barbecue, they were only swearing by your meats and the things that you were doing in there. And I want to circle back to that, but how do you even start this whole story with being a butcher? I feel like that's something that isn't a lost art, but it's not a thing that people are looking into doing these days.
I started with my father and my grandfather. I was just probably 13, 14 years old, and I was hanging around, and you just kind of grow up into it, and eventually I had to do the work, and this was kind of expected for a while. I went up, did some college classes and on business, and still decided that that's really what I wanted to do.
So what was the butcher shop in Hellertown when you did it with your father and your grandfather?
We were at the Allentown Fairgrounds, and we had our little store at the farm down in Springtown.
That's a very unique way to grow up. So you grew up on a farm?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't actually like we raised animals anymore. My grandfather did, but at that point we had stopped raising animals. But yeah, so we grew up, and we'd have a couple days where we processed the meat, and then 3 days where we sold the meat.
What a crazy way to grow up, because I know a couple of people that worked on farms when I grew up, and I don't know how abundant it is or like how many people actually get that experience anymore, but was that just work constantly? Like you were just kind of working nonstop, and then looking back on it, do you look at it as like, well, that's all we did was work? Or what kind of atmosphere was it on the farm, even getting like your skill set down for being a butcher?
I started out there. I mean, when I was little, they actually gave me a butter knife. I mean, that's how little I was.
That's cool.
And I was out just pretending to help cut up, and then I'd go out and play for a while. And I mean, I was little. I was like 10, 12, 13. Yeah. 13 is when I actually like started making where they kind of expect me to come out and help them a little bit. And no, I mean, you just went in, you had your certain jobs you did, and then at 13, I went out and kept on playing. 14.
Yeah.
And I think by the time I like started driving and I actually needed money, then I was expected to perform certain responsibilities, and I got paid for them, and just kind of grew from there. And I just picked things up. They gave me the easy stuff to do, like grind beef and do stuff I can't really screw up, and as you're there longer.
Did you find that you were becoming interested in that kind of work, and were like kind of building a craft the entire time? Because I mean, I feel like what you do and how unique your spot is, that it's, you had to fallen in love with the process of doing it and wanting to do it for a living.
I grew up just kind of doing it. I didn't really think it was something that I wanted to do forever. I mean, it was be kind of nice to keep my family business going, but I just kind of like did it. I had to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get the appreciation of it until I got older.
When was it when you kind of made the transition? Because you said you were going to college. Like, was it kind of a hard decision to stay in the family business, or was something that, like, before the show started, we were talking about like getting into like things that you enjoy, and then trying to find a passion, and then realizing that there's roadblocks to that, and then you kind of get into a different lane. Did you always see the lane of being a butcher, or was there something you were going after in college?
No, when I went to college, I actually took over hotel and restaurant management, and I was going to kind of focus into that avenue, and then...
Which that kind of directly applies, though, with you running a business now.
It does, yeah. It was definitely... But I really wanted to do something corporate. I mean, I always thought corporate was a way to make big money, and, I was a teenager. I wanted to make big money. And I did that, and at one point, I think I was probably in my early 20s, I decided that I didn't want to do the family business anymore. I wanted to be a head butcher out in one of these grocery stores. And I left for about 3 months, and I do remember calling up and saying, "Can I come back?" Because it was absolutely a nightmare. And I came back, and it was probably one of the best things I ever did, because I came back with a whole different appreciation of the quality of meat and what makes somebody want to come back and get it again. 'Cause I did some scary stuff when I worked at a grocery store.
I think it's important when you are younger and you can go and, it's almost like you need a reality check where, like what you were saying, like in your head, we're like, I'm going to work corporate. That's where I make big money. And then when you get involved and you see the layers of it and how things actually work, it's not what you think it is. And then, because I moved to Virginia for a little bit to work on, because this was an apparel company in the very beginning, and it's like, I thought I needed to move and I just need to get out of this stupid town. Like that. In all reality, the best place to work is this town. My friends and family are here. This is the cheapest place I can run this. Like sometimes, but I needed that reality check of like, oh man, like this isn't going to be better running away from some good things that you have at home.
Yeah, no, it was probably, in hindsight, it was probably the best thing I ever did. Because I went out and I saw things. One of the biggest things I remember doing is I had to grind beef that was like greener than the grass. And they bought it from another grocery store. They're one of their sister stores. And they told me to use it up. And I mean, it was like stinky and nasty. And
isn't it weird when you're in like those, because I feel like that was like a moral position they put you in. Like
it definitely came
and then
in.
you have to make a decision where you're like, well, I wouldn't have done this with my dad, or like, I wasn't raised this way to feed people lime green meat. Yeah. And then you're left to, I don't know, I feel like that's the stuff that keeps you up at night.
It was definitely, I even went to the meat manager at the time, and I said, I don't think this stuff is good. And he's like, no, mix it with one of those and two of the good ones and it'll be okay.
No, that's just what we do here.
And yeah. And even the store manager came back, he goes, what smells back here? I'm like, it's this meat I'm grinding. And he said, this is what I'm supposed to do. He's like, oh, okay. And I went out for lunch that day, and on their little doors it says we are an employee-owned company. And I'm like, God, really? Like, if I'm technically supposedly an owner, like, I would never do this shit. Like,
yeah.
This is horrible. So
how long did you work? Was it one place that you stayed corporate, or did you bounce around to a couple different butchers?
I just worked at the one chain. They put me into like 5 different stores, and it was amazing to me that like one store would actually be really good. Like they had one store that like I would eat anything there. It was awesome, and then pretty much all the other stores were like just absolutely terrible. What
does that come down to? The person that's in charge of running the entire operation?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to the meat manager himself, the one that's in charge, and the one that's kind of steering the ship. I mean, if he's doing his job correctly and doing it right, you don't have to worry about things. But if he has older stuff sitting around or he orders too much, I mean, he has to do something with it. And a lot of times we'd send it to the deli if it was no good, and they'd roast it off for the roast chickens. And I mean, it was it was kind of scary. So
I'm sure it's worse now.
So it was my big appreciation of when I came back. I was like, wow, I'll never do this. And that's kind of where we are. And we've only gone for quality. And
how did they accept you back? Were they like, yeah, we kind of told you? Were they busting your balls a little bit?
No,
or were they kind of like, yeah, man, we need your help?
They just let me slide back in.
Yeah.
They're like, we still got your spot here.
They knew you'd be back. I was telling you before the show started, my first job ever, I worked at Bayesian's meat market, and it was a butcher right here in Nazareth, and that was like where my mom, it was before the big chains came in. I think Lane Co. might have been, or Keppel's. But that's where my mom would go get like our Sunday meats for, cooking and everything. And it was very family oriented. You went in, he talked to you, they knew you, kind of like what we were talking about before the show. Now, when you said you were at like the Allentown Fair, like what was the transition of this turning into kind of what it was in Hellertown, or still is? Like was there a gap between getting the brick and mortar, or when did you guys start that?
Well, brick and mortar started, we bought that, me and my wife, in 2006, or 2007. And basically we were at the Allentown Fairgrounds. My grandfather started in there, and we just did pork in there. That's all my grandfather raised was pork, and that's all we really sold was pork. And my father started, when he had a business, he started bringing some beef in. And when we were in the Allentown Fairgrounds, we did the pork and the beef and the smoked stuff. And long story short, I landed up meeting my wife there. There was an Italian stand right next to where Saylors was. We decided that we were going to expand Saylors into that kind of the end unit there. And the landlords asked me to keep it an Italian market, and I'm Pennsylvania Dutch. So I definitely needed some help with that. And my wife is Italian. So we ended up going in there, and we took over it, and she made it into an Italian market, and we did really well with it. And after we were there a couple of years, we decided that maybe it was time to start looking for a corner spot, or, as my wife will say, a spot on the street corner.
Yeah.
And we started looking around, and we found the one that is in Hellertown, and it seemed to be a great fit, and it was a nice location between the two of them for Springtown and Allentown.
So were you, when you were making the transition, could you tell the popularity of Saylors, and like you were building what you've always wanted with like kind of like people coming in and them, and you seeing return customers? Like, was there a big shift in seeing the growth of it where you knew it was time to go and it would just make things simpler if you had the corner store?
Well, we saw Springtown growing. Like, that store was growing, and let me remind you, at that time we were open 1 day a week for sales. We did Thursday, and that was it. I mean, he couldn't even run a business
And that was at
model.
the fairgrounds?
No, that was at our farm store.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
We were open just Thursdays. Like, he couldn't even run a business being open just 1 day. It'd be nice if he could, but we did. And
It'd be awesome if that was the standard.
So, but we saw that business grow, and it really needed to expand down there. And the Allentown market was just kind of doing its thing and not really doing a big push forward. And we just decided that, Hellertown would be a great spot to kind of expand this and go into a little bit more. And that's what kind of motivated us, was the growth in Springtown. We expected to maintain most of our customers from Springtown. We literally moved 2 miles down the road. And if the Allentown customers, we'd figure we'd probably lose a majority of them. And I mean, in hindsight, after we opened up, we probably retained 85% of our Allentown customers, and we actually lost probably like 50% of our Springtown customers.
Yeah.
And because they like going to the farm. That was the biggest thing. I like going to the farm and seeing the horse and the cats.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we had good meat too, but they like seeing the horse and the cats.
No, I mean, we went, I went up towards the Poconos, going to a couple like antique different shops, and the one was like on these back windy roads, and it was like the experience of going there, and then it was like an old home, and then they had the whole thing decorated, so I can definitely see why customers would want that. I mean, it's also why people like coming down here to buy stuff. They just like the vibe of the studio, but you kind of can take that aspect and roll it up into different fields in Hellertown, but you're definitely not able to put cats and horses outside.
I often thought if we could put like a chicken coop outside, we'd probably like get people back because they could come out and see the chickens.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What was the general idea with opening up the Hellertown spot that you guys were kind of, because I feel like you guys are unique there and you do a very good job of it being a butcher shop and not, like it's a very old school thing that you're doing, and I feel like you keep the soul of that alive. What was the idea of when you got in there as kind of like what you were going to sell? What were you going to bring to the area that was going to be a little different? Were you going to do different things since, were you just basically taking the model from the Allentown Fairgrounds vibe over, or like what was kind of the game plan going in there to make something different for Hellertown?
So we went in there thinking that we'd do all the meats that we did before. I mean, obviously we're doing them, people buying them, it'd be great. We did that, and then we had the all the Italian specialties. We had the raviolis and them cheeses and stuff like that, and I thought, oh, this will go well. So when we opened up our store, we went in gung-ho. We got a bunch of Italian products in, and we kind of had two things going against us. I mean, Saylors doesn't sound Italian at all.
Nope.
and the other thing is Hellertown really doesn't have a large Italian demographic. So we kind of had to back off the Italian stuff after we were there about a year. I remember we had 3 cases in our showroom for meat. I remember we were there about 6 months, and my wife said that I need to get out of that other case because she needs it for prepared food, because the prepared food started going really well, and it just worked as a good compliment.
Were you guys doing prepared food at the other location?
We were just doing a little bit. We did like some fried eggplants and some fried chicken, and like the chicken cutlets and stuff like that. It was just a small amount. It wasn't too much. So when it came into Hellertown, it was a whole new line that we weren't even really expecting to tap into.
Who was behind that? Mostly your wife doing the prepared stuff?
Yeah, my wife's an amazing cook, so she got in there and she started doing it. And even it was a learning curve for her, because even prepared food, when you cook it, I mean, when you go into a restaurant, it looks nice because it's coming out to you hot. Here we're serving it to you cold, so it has to look pretty when it's cold. Yeah, which is not an easy thing to do. So,
no, and you have to think about all that stuff, because it's not just, hey, here's ravioli for sale. Like, you have to make it look pleasing, and that's one of the things you guys absolutely kill on, is when you look into the butcher display and everything, you want to buy everything. It's very difficult to like get out of there with not getting a bunch of everything. What was the biggest thing when you were doing the prepared foods that you noticed started moving constantly? Because I mean, there's got to be growth there where you're like, shit, like now we have to have eggplant every day, or like, did you have to start rotating days? What was it like to now be full-time butcher and moving all that, but then now having to add the cooking aspect into it, and then having that load to have ready all the time, because we both know that if you don't have something somebody wants, you're going to hear about it when they're at the counter.
We used to start, we'd actually have off Sunday and Monday. We were closed Sundays and Mondays in Helltown. We didn't even go in the store Sunday and Mondays, and it got to the point where we had to start doing food prep on Mondays because we had to be ready for Tuesday at 9 a.m. when we opened. But we had a lot of staple things like our crab cakes. I mean, we started them in the beginning, and they haven't ever left our case, I don't believe. The mozzarella stuffed meatballs, I mean, we get yelled at if they're not in there anymore. And we make our own pulled pork, that's in there. So there's certain staples. Our chicken salad, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard we have the best chicken salad around. It's certain things that we can't get rid of at this point anymore. And we try to rotate our case, so there's always something new in there. There's a new fish dinner, a new pork dinner, a new beef dinner. But certain things like the crab cakes and the chicken salad, I think we'd probably get executed if we didn't have them in the case.
I hear a lot about the sausage as well. Mitch talks highly of it and actually drives all the way up here just for getting the sausage when he does stuff.
He does. We make over 50 different flavors of sausage at this point. We don't always have all of them in our case, but we do. We always have at least, probably, I would say there's 40 different sausages in our case that we make.
How did you get into doing the different sausages? Was that from the Italian background of her, or like when did you start really getting into the different types of sausage that you have with like jalapeno, or is that stuff that you guys just kind of come up with and see what works, or like how did you even get into doing different blends for sausages?
My grandfather did the country sausage like we normally do.
I love country sausage.
And then we did a garlic sausage, and we did an Italian sausage, and believe it or not, the Pennsylvania Dutch, we did an Italian sausage. so we had to change the whole to Italian instead of Italian, but that's really all we did. And then my father started a couple other ones. He did like the Cajun and the chorizo, but when me and my wife took over, we kind of got hungry, and like we came up with the jalapeno and cheese, which is a great one, and the bacon and cheddar, and I mean the Italians expanded into the sweet and the mild and the hot now, and we got an apple, and so I mean it was just things that they just sounded great, and I'm always looking for new ideas. I kind of get bored doing the same thing. Same. So I'm always looking for something new. Actually, we're trying to fool around and making up a new burger right now because we do flavored burgers, and we're. Do those?
I don't want to get into burger stuff because I picked up that stuff for the smash burgers. But when you started getting into the different sausages, did you find that now you guys like? I'm sure it's like you're doing the same thing, but then when you get into like, hey, I think this would work together. And that's my favorite thing about cooking is you can be like, especially if you're working with someone that you know, like where I'm sure you know the palate of your wife or how she makes stuff. So you know how things are going to taste when you're throwing ideas at her. Is it kind of like you guys get this creative vibe going and you're like, oh, I think we can do this and that. And then you do a test run and then kind of move it out, or like, what's the process of you guys creating?
I just say, usually I like to come up with an idea. I'm like, what do you think about this? And she'll say, what are you, crazy? Or she'll say, wow, that's really good. We should try it. So then we make up a little batch, and I throw it at her. And she's got so much better taste buds than I do. She can figure it all out. And she'll look at it and say, well, I think you need shallots in this, or I think you need this. And
has she cooked all of her whole life, like just from family, or was it from she worked in worked in restaurants, or where does she get that unique flavor that she puts into all the sandwiches and stuff?
She grew up being a cook. I mean, she learned from her mother a little bit, and she was a commercial loan processor, and she would cook on weekends and take it into work for everybody to eat. And then she actually landed up at Allentown Fairgrounds. There was a little cafe that opened up, and she landed up buying into the cafe, and she left the banking for a little bit and started doing burgers and stuff like that and little dinners, and it was kind of like her little escape from the commercial world. And it was a good thing she did, because that's how I met her. So
yeah,
I mean, but she just landed up she has a great knack for how to put stuff together and how to make it taste great. And
because she's behind a lot of the sandwiches that you run on specials now in Easton.
Yeah, her and my daughter Elaine.
Yeah.
So they come up with great sandwiches.
Yeah, they look everything on them's awesome. When did the burgers start taking off?
We started doing them, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago or so. I don't even remember. And we just started fooling around with different flavors. And I mean, it's one of the things like, why didn't we start doing this earlier? I mean, it just kind of worked. And so come summertime, we do a lot of burgers all spring, summer, fall. But they've been going pretty strong through the winter here as well, even if people can't find a grill right now.
I just started researching burgers. I cooked for a really long time, and then it was just all different people I worked for, and it was kind of you lose your creativity for a while when you start getting into things, and and I just slowly started getting back into them, and we were talking about owning places and having to get help, and I started seeing people doing pop-ups, and that's my way that I think is the easiest route I can take to doing food on my own terms. But I started researching burgers because I got obsessed with making smash burgers. I don't even know if I can eat one anymore. That's how many I've made. Because my friends are like, "Oh, make them for us," and I was like, "Sure," but I'm not. I'll get pizza or something. But like, I can't eat any more smash burgers. But that's the thing, and I'm sure is like you have to do something a shitload of times to dial it in.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, "Man, that burger's awesome." I'm like, "Yes, that's why I gained 35 pounds because I made 400 of them." But I started really getting into the back end of it and looking into the blends and the butcher end of it, and like it was very interesting to get into like the fat ratios and all that. Like, how does that work as far as like because I went in and I was like 80-20, I think. Like, what do you guys do with your burgers?
We usually do our regular ground beef, or sometimes we'll even make it a little bit fattier because a little extra fat actually makes a burger taste so much better.
Yeah.
Generally we use like a regular ground beef for it. This weekend actually we fooled around with making a ground sirloin burger, and I mean it was good, but you definitely need the fat into it. So we shoot for like an 80-85% usually.
Do you make like when you play around with stuff? Do you make blends where you'll add bacon in for the fat, or like like what you like, or just doing like somebody told me over the weekend that they did like it was like 50-50. It was like 50% ground chuck, and then the other 50 was just like all bacon. Like, do you mess around with getting like wild with stuff like that, or do you like it to keep it a little bit simpler with the burgers?
I've done it for some customers where they have asked for it, but we haven't done that for in our case yet.
Yeah. What's your opinion on that? Like, do you like that style, or do you like a simple burger? Like, where are you at with your taste buds?
I don't know. We make a brisket burger, which is a whole Though the brisket burger is a whole little science to itself, and they're definitely heavy in fat, but when you make them, they're just a light, airy, and super moist burger. And
I think that's my favorite blend is when it's blended with brisket.
Yeah.
Wegmans did it for a little bit, but like I said, I'm new to now going to a butcher for stuff, and I knew the taste would jump up. And then when I came to you, and I was like, all right, like I want to try this now, and everybody I made it with what we went back and forth on just using the ground chuck, like it took it a whole nother level up.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's a huge difference. But I was watching YouTube videos on it, and I didn't realize that like how it's packaged and like the air inside of it makes everything like super dense. And then like they were even doing stuff where they put butcher burger out and then like the store-bought burger, and then they smash both of them, and you see the difference of how compact the stuff is coming from a grocery store, and you don't realize what the actual difference is. And then when I had it, I was like, yeah, there's no going back. I'm not ever going to do this to sell them without butcher, because it's 200 times better.
The whole compressing of a burger really is where you lose a lot of the best part of the burger, that little bit of air that's in there.
Yeah.
We have a burger machine that makes out burgers, and they're good burgers, but when you eat them and you eat one of the hand pressed, all our burgers are hand pressed that we make at the store, then it's night and day. And as far as tenderness, I mean, a regular burger just kind of falls apart in your mouth, and it's great. It
was weird even when I was smashing them on the flat top, because there was just everything about it was so different. Even rolling it up, I was like, oh, like now I understand what the quality was from the store-bought to this, because it just felt totally different. And then when I cooked them on the grill, the times changed, and like how it cooked changed, and it was like it's kind of comparable to using like a farm fresh egg. Like there's more leeway to how you're cooking because it's fresh. It's not there's not stuff in it, there's not preservatives, all that other stuff. So I was like, yeah, there's no way I shouldn't be doing this. And then it made me realize how much more I want to get into other cooking and using your products as opposed to just getting them at the store.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between going to a butcher. I mean, it's not just me. I mean, go to any butcher.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely makes a big difference between that and going to a grocery store. I mean, it's. I mean, unless you're gonna buy the whole piece and cut it up yourself and do your own things. I mean, especially when it comes to ground beef or any kind of ground meat.
Yeah. Does it apply with chicken as well, or like how? What are the other? how much is the difference on the other meats besides hamburger?
I would think that.
I saw her shaking her head. Yes.
God, chicken is so much different.
Yeah, she probably would know more actually, because we never buy ground chicken in the store, so I don't really have a lot of experience with the ground chicken part.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of times they pack it with a gas, and that changes the flavor and stuff, but yeah.
What do you guys do primarily with chicken there? Like marinated and stuff like that?
No, I mean, Tim just uses, we fill the chicken side of the case with the regular kind of cuts, but just like a chicken breast that we sell is night and day compared to what you're going to find at the grocery store. Like I remember like when I was in college and I would bring home food from Saylors because it was just, it was free and I was a college kid.
It's the best kind.
Or like say I wasn't able to get home to like get food for like the week or whatever, my mom didn't come up or something like that. I have to go to Giant to get a chicken breast or something to cook dinner, and it's just like rubbery, and then it's just like the texture of it's so different. I'm like, what is this? Like, this is chicken? So I'm totally spoiled in that respect.
That's good though. I had a chicken that I had at a restaurant, and it was like a double battered chicken, and as soon as I was eating it, I was like, I want to make like a spicy chicken, like the Hattie's, like Louisiana style hot chicken, and then now I'm obsessed with that. And then I started thinking, and I'm like, oh, he probably has chicken there. And I was like, oh my god, now I can get. But like that's the thing, is now I know. Like if I'm putting my name on food and I'm selling it, I'm sure you're the same way. You want it to be the best version of what you want to represent yourself with. You don't want to look as if you're not selling green meat and all that. So when I want to do food, I want it to match how the picture looks. I want it to be the taste. It's an experience I would want somebody to have. So now with kind of rolling over into getting the stuff fresh like that, it's really opened the doors as to like leveling everything up to where I want it, because I don't want to buy a big box of chicken from Sam's Club to do this. I'd rather get it through you, and that's going to make it 200 times better, and then the people who are eating it are like, holy shit, like, because it's night and day when you have a sausage that you're doing and then get something from the store.
We even did that when we switched over. Like, we used Bell & Evans chicken, and we used to sell Allen's chicken, which is just a big commercial company. And when we brought it into Hellertown, it's a big price difference. It's probably almost a double price difference. But we'd give out like three of somebody come in and say, oh, can I get four boneless chicken breasts? I'm like, I'm going to give you 3 of the Allen chicken breasts, and I'm going to give you 1 of the Bell & Evans chicken breasts for the same price. And you could tell me when you get home if you could taste the difference between it. And they'd come in the next time and like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. They're like, it tasted so much different. It's so much better. I'm like, it's like a night and day difference.
Yeah, people would be like, it tastes like chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want to eat. If you buy chicken, you want to taste chicken.
And there's times where I got stuff, and I made chicken, and then like it's rubbery, and then you start questioning like why it was on sale, or why, like how long it's been there, and then like I don't know. It's really made me just want to change the way I'm purchasing to eat. And I'm only one person, so I know it's easier for me to shop for, but like I try and explain to my parents, I'm like, look, this isn't the way this food's supposed to taste. And my mom's like, she cuts it and she's like, well, I think it's a little undercooked, it's rubbery. And I'm like, no, it's just shitty chicken. Like, stop buying the stuff on sale. There's a reason it's on sale.
I remember when we were just switching over to Bell & Evans, or maybe when I was just thinking about switching to Bell & Evans, getting some of the commercial chicken, and I opened up a box of chicken breast, and I had like a almost 5-pound chicken breast in the case. I'm like, how do you grow a 5-pound chicken? I mean, it just doesn't. That's just a breast. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what are they feeding us, and do I really want to be eating it?
Yeah, and, anytime there's things where they're like, I have a tomato the size of your head, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how that happened. I'm like, this is a pumpkin. I'm sure it's not natural that a tomato's that big. I never understood I don't know. I always preferred fresh. Yeah,
and so with the Bell & Evans, so you'll get a chicken breast that's like 4 or 6 ounces for a boneless breast, or I mean, if it's a big one, it might be 8 ounces. You'll get one of the commercial chickens, and you're gonna get chicken breasts that are 12 to 16 ounces for a breast, and they're like, well, I want 2 chicken breasts, and it's 2 pounds. I'm like, well, you get 2 chicken breasts from Bell & Evans, and it's only a pound, so even though it's more expensive, it's still coming out to the same price at the end. And do you really need to be eating a 1-pound chicken breast?
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes out, it's a better product, and it's good all around.
Now, I knew the guys were coming to you for the competition stuff, with Muma came down a lot, and I think Mitch was using you guys a lot. I don't know how much he was coming in there, but do you deal with a lot of like people doing competition and then kind of come in and there's people that are looking to like really stand out? And when you start getting into competition barbecue or messing around with barbecue, the meat does matter. So like, do you have a lot of customers that are kind of like coming in doing their own thing like that?
Chris was my biggest guy. He'd come in all the time. I mean, Chris and Mitch would come in, but other than that, there wasn't. Every once in a while, you get somebody to come in, but they were the biggest ones. But they taught me a whole lot about barbecuing and even the appreciation, even more so for meat.
Yeah.
I mean, watching what they did was a whole science involved.
I went down to visit Muma. They were doing a competition, and he always talked about doing it, and I never knew what it took. And then when I got there, he was just like, there was so much going on. And I was like, holy shit. And there was people sitting around waiting to do stuff, but when he was the person who was in charge of the meat, not like the people that are down there to just help, like it was a job.
Yeah.
And then he would be like, oh, come over here and look at this. And I was like, all right. And then, he pulls the chicken out, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm peeling all the skin off, and I'm going to season under it and then put the skin back on. And I'm like, that's totally insane. And then he's like, yeah, but that's how you get like the leveled up flavor and the crispiness. Like that whole competition barbecue and doing any of that stuff is one of the most difficult things I've watched people do.
Yeah, for Chris, I used to get the whole legs, and I used to cut the thigh off, but leave the skin all attached, bone out all the skin off the extra drum so that he'd have extra skin to go on, so you could wrap the whole thigh into a little pouch of skin.
He took it to a whole nother level. I know he went to classes. You know what I mean? Like he flew places and took like weekend courses on barbecuing. He really knew a lot of that, and he always spoke highly of you as far as like you working with him. Like he would come in and be like, hey, like, because you, like, even how I'm talking to you now, it's like I still have to learn from you as to like how to get that. Like I don't know anything about being a butcher, so it's like I come in and ask an expert, and he always that was one thing he always pointed out to you about you, was that you always helped him out with like kind of knowing more.
Yeah, I know one of the last things we did together, he was doing he had a bologna as like an extra, judging that they did. They had to make a bologna, so we made this whole big special bologna for him, and I even forget what kind of combination we did, but I worked right with him. He's like, this is what I'd like, and this is what and we did it. I think he did okay with it. I don't remember exactly.
He definitely placed. I think one of the last competitions he did, I don't know if he got first or third, but it was top 3. But after seeing what it takes to do competition barbecue and then seeing what he actually did, it's quite an accomplishment of what he had going on for himself. Now, when you're saying like the special blends and all that, do you do that for customers or whatnot when they want to come in and they want to do their own sausage or they want to get a specific style hamburger or anything? Do you work with them primarily?
Oh yeah, we definitely. I had somebody come in this week and they just saw something down in Texas on a food show, and they did a beef and a pork half and half sausage.
Yeah.
And she don't know, can you do that for me? I'm like, yeah. I just we usually ask for like a 5-pound minimum just to make it easy to whip the ingredients, and she's like, oh, yeah, no problem. So we actually ended up did it right on the spot for her. I mean,
that was my follow-up question is how long does that take, or is it something that you can just kind of be like, all right, we're going to do this?
All depends how involved it is. I have one guy, once we make a special chorizo for him, and he has brandy in there and all this funky different spices and stuff. So we do whatever you need to do. I mean, that's what we do. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer, sometimes a day or two if we have to get ingredients in, but normally we could do it. Right.
What's one of the craziest things you did that for a customer that came out like have you ever been like, that sounds good, I'm gonna try it? Like, what are the craziest combinations people are coming in with?
I don't know. I mean, there's some pretty crazy stuff out there. I mean, we just smoked chicken feet for somebody, or like the actual paws for somebody for their dog treats. So I mean, that was a little bit crazy there.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as sausages go, I don't know. We were making bangers. Were they bangers? No, snags for the Australian embassy down in Washington, D.C. for a while. It was
really
cool. Yeah. My sister had a connection. She lived in D.C. and her girlfriend says, oh, she's from the Australian embassy, and she really misses these snags that they get in Australia.
What's a snag?
It was just a sausage. It had a lot of garlic in there, and it was beef and pork and garlic and onion. I forget all what was in there. But we made a couple batches for her, and by like the third batch, she was like, oh, this is great. I need like 40 pounds for the Australian embassy. We're having a gala. And so it was pretty cool. So while they were down there, we were feeding Australian embassy.
Oh, that's cool. Do you guys do catering?
Yeah, we do. We do some catering. We kind of trying to get away from the out-of-house catering. We're doing stuff that you pick up and go.
Yeah.
It's been tough with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, that's just tough in general to be handling a brick and mortar and then also handling catering and then handling specialties that people are coming in. It just gets, you just spread yourself too thin. You're better off doing it that way.
It goes back to staff. I mean, all catering requires staff, and it's hard to get somebody to show up when you need somebody for one weekend, a month. So.
Yeah. What's it been like expanding now to where you guys landed in Easton? How did that come about? Was that location just kind of thrown at you? Was it a plan to get somewhere in Easton eventually? Like, how did getting into the public market even happen?
Well, the whole public market thing, I'd have to say, was all my daughter Elaine's idea. I mean, I dragged my feet and kicked my feet and screamed, but in the end, it was a great idea. We saw that Dunder Heister was leaving, and my wife kind of said, "Oh, if you look at that spot's opening," and Jared from the market reached out to us and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, that may be cool, but I don't really need more work."
Yeah.
And that same day, Elaine called and she's like, "Hey, did you see that Dunder Heister left? That'd be a great spot for us." I'm like, "I don't want to do this." So they landed up taking a meeting with Jared without me and checked out the spot.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
I saw the announcement that they were leaving, and I was in my office, and I was like, "Mom, like, this is perfect. Like, it's fitted for us. Like, it'd be low. Like,
It really is. Did you have a vision of it before that? Like, you kind of like when the market was going, did you see like expanding there, or was it just kind of like an instant like, oh, they're leaving, we could slide in there?
I remember when the market first opened, and of course I like had to check out the new thing, right?
Yeah.
So I went and I saw their meat cases, and I was like, oh, okay, like I get it, it's nice and everything's organic and everything's like $30 a pound, but the cases were kind of, I don't want to say anything bad about them, but they just weren't like what we were doing. So it was interesting to see. But yeah, and then I saw that they left, and I was like, Mom, like I want to do this. Like we should do this. This is so perfect. And
was she into it right away?
She was like, Like I think I definitely had to sell Tim and my mom. Like they're the hardest working people I've ever known in my life. Like nobody comes close to how hard these people work. And I know it was asking a lot to be like, Mom, like I want to do this. Like let me do this. But I think she saw the fire in me, and I think she was like, all right, I'll get Tim on board.
Yeah, she was on board. My wife was on board before I was.
Yeah.
Definitely, without a doubt.
And then it's a killer spot because it's what you see when you walk in through that main entrance.
Yeah, it's the perfect location.
It is.
Yeah.
That helps sell it.
Yeah, because
sure.
Even if I'm trying to think like how that's laid out, like if you really put that anywhere else, I think you guys would still be doing well. But to be what you see when you walk in, and it's got a market feel in there, and then the first thing you see is a butcher, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where I want to be. This is where I'm getting this style stuff. I mean, it's just that as soon as I saw that, I was like, yes. Like Hellertown's not too far from me, but then what you guys started doing there and doing the sandwiches, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so close.
Yeah, and I think the Easton really put also Hellertown on the map.
Yeah,
because it was like people who didn't, like who wants, not to say anything on Hellertown, but like who's really going to Hellertown? Just the people that are, local to that area.
It's a unique spot in Hellertown, and then the people of Hellertown, that's like their hidden gem.
It is,
and then
absolutely.
like I found out about it through like people who lived in Hellertown, and then through Mitch, and I just kept hearing the name, but I couldn't put a face to it. Now that you're saying it, it's kind of like the public market put that like, no, this is what we've been doing. You're just finding out about it now, and then now you got to buzz on both.
Yeah.
And now you have twice the amount of work and have to juggle two stores. What's that been like for you? Because you guys just haven't really had a little bit of popularity. I feel like you're a standout in that market.
It definitely blew Saylors up more. I mean, the market did a lot for us as publicity, and we did see a huge uptake in business. It was rough in the beginning. It was definitely rough in the beginning.
How long were you in there before COVID hit?
We weren't. We were getting ready to open in April.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We were shooting to open in April, and everything shut down in March, and we did land up doing curbside in Hellertown. It was more than we could possibly handle just doing that. And I told Jared, there's no way I can't even get enough meat right now to keep Hellertown supplied, let alone try to open another place. So we opened in August, I believe. We finally got in there and got opened, and everything was getting a little bit better. And it took several months till we finally got everything running smooth and figuring out. And
because that's different. That's a whole different monster than Hellertown.
It is
the market.
And I've learned even when we were doing the outdoor farmers markets, every market is so much different than the next one. I mean, Easton is such a different place from Hellertown. I mean, it's just, and figuring out the feel and the energy and what's going to move and what doesn't move. I mean, it was definitely.
Yeah, because now I know why you didn't want to do 2 stores. Because now it's, if you have specialties, I mean, it's a good problem. But like if you have specialties that are going in Hellertown that don't work at Easton, now you're doing 2 different specialties for 2 different shops.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things like Easton, we can sell the heck out of tomahawk ribeyes up there. I mean, people love them. A 3-pound tomahawk ribeye. And,
well, they have, what is it, Oak? Oak sells the tomahawk.
So we have them in a case and we sell them like crazy, and then we have them in Hellertown, and like people are like, "Wow, that's a big steak." No, give me a ribeye. I mean, it's just like it's two different
worlds.
Yeah, but no, it's getting better now. As it's getting busier, we're getting more direct deliveries right to Easton, which makes it a lot easier on me for one thing. So we're not trucking stuff back and forth all the time.
How do you balance both?
We got a good staff, a good crew behind us. So, I mean, I try to go up there a couple days a week and run it, and I have a butcher that goes up there a couple days a week, and he's a butcher for up there. And
what's it like even hiring a butcher or trying to find somebody with the correct skill set, or do you have to train?
It's difficult. I'm a horrible trainer. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I'm the worst person to train anybody. I have very little patience, and but so I try to find somebody, and it takes a while. I mean, definitely the butcher is a dying art, and it's hard to find. And then ones that grew up through doing grocery stores really don't know the way I grew up. I mean, I grew up hands-on and learning it, and you can't find that in somebody. You can't teach that in somebody until they.
Do you even see any of the younger kids coming in to pick up the skill set of being a butcher? Have you ran into that over the years?
Yeah, there's people that come in and are interested, but being the dedicated that you have to be, it's not something that like you're putting a Lego together. You just follow instructions and it works. I mean, and you have to understand the animal and understand the bones and figure out how to make stuff out of a giant piece. And there's no dotted lines in an animal, so you have to learn how to do stuff. And people think it's easy, but it's definitely definitely an art.
I was gonna say to learn that craft and then be able to open a store and sell meat by being a butcher and keeping the family thing going, like that's pretty impressive what you're doing. What's it feel like to be in your shoes now that you left the corporate world and you got 2 stores open and you're doing all this stuff? I mean, do you feel like you've accomplished the creative itch of doing your own thing and you're away from corporate and all that? Are you happy with where this all is, or do you want more?
No, I'm happy. I mean, I'm definitely happy. It's great to see the success of both places. It's great to see my daughter running another business and it's being successful. And actually, one of my best days of the week are when I could go up there and just be a butcher for her.
Yeah.
And they come up and want to talk to me about advertising. I'm like, nope, go talk to her.
Because you run the social media?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you play a part in the sandwiches? Because I know you said your wife does a lot of that. I want to touch on the sandwiches a little bit because I think what you guys are doing with that is special.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously at the public market, there's a lot of restaurants there. So we wanted to have just like a little something to offer people who are looking for lunch. And I don't know, I've always liked making sandwiches, and I think it's kind of cool how we offer just one a week.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are like, you only have one sandwich? And it's kind of like, there's this comedy skit from Sebastian what's his last name? Maniscalco, yeah. And he's like slicing. He's like, you know, when you go into an Italian deli and they're like slicing lunch meat, and all of a sudden, and whatever he's gonna make, it's gonna be good. He's like, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
You gotta see that clip. It's so funny. But I kind of like think about that when people are like, oh, you only sell one sandwich. It's like, yeah, but it's like a really good freaking sandwich.
I came down with Matt originally to talk to you, and I forget the sandwich you guys had at the time. It was an Italian sandwich. I can't remember if it was
the porchetta with the.
Was that what it was?
The roast pork and the broccoli rabe and the provolone.
I don't think it was that. It was something else that was going on at the
You should have
time.
came that week.
I know, and I love that too. Well, you started out with what, the standard Italian, you guys did.
Possibly.
What's the first one you put
The
out?
Godfather.
Yes,
It's The Godfather.
Which I think that's what I had when Matt was down. But I just remember going, and there was somebody in line who was like, "Oh, there's only one thing." I'm like, "Get out of the way!" I'm like, I already
I'm trying
know.
to get that.
I'm like, the lady over there made the bread. You can't get any fresher than that.
No,
I'm like,
yeah.
get out of here.
Yeah.
And then we got him, and we sat outside, and I took one bite, and I told Matt, I said, I travel a lot for food. I've done it since I was a kid. A friend of mine used to take me to Philly all the time, and he knows food and takes me to sandwich spots, and then I knew that was going to be close to what I was getting in the city. And then as soon as we took one bite in it, the whole experience with going in there, getting that style sandwich from a butcher, and then the bread's also fresh as well. You really can't get anything fresher than that, let alone you'd have to drive into a city because people around here aren't doing that.
Right,
And then
exactly.
I posted that I believe it's the best sandwich in the Lehigh Valley, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are here. Like, that held its own to traveling to New York and Philly and getting the bread and like the entire experience. Like, you guys literally hit like a complete home run on making those sandwiches. And then now I see them and I get pissed because I don't have time to drive down and get them, and they sell out, which I thought was such a cool, unique thing that we now have in the area, where it's like you have the sandwich, that there is a demand for it. It's super fresh. And what all came behind with making that? Because you guys said you get the bread from the lady inside the market as well.
Modern Crumb makes our bread, and she wasn't doing an Italian bread, and we were starting to get our bread. At the very beginning, we were like, "Oh, we're just gonna order it in from the Anthony's, which is Jersey bread."
Yeah.
And then Katie came up to us and was like, "Oh, like, do you need bread? Like, can I make your bread?" And we're like, "Yeah, try to make a semolina Italian baguette or hero
Yes.
and let us try it." And so
Yeah.
we tried it, and we're like, "Okay, yeah." Like, we went back and forth, and we crafted it with us, and now people are like obsessed with the bread.
Yeah.
They love the semolina.
But that's what made the sandwich, because
Yeah.
nothing against Anthony's or these other places, but it's totally different to get that bread from her and get something mass produced and brought in. And I worked in cheesesteak shops for forever and sandwich shops, and like that bread is like make it or break it. Like,
Yeah,
if
it
you don't
totally
have good
is.
bread and you have the best meat ever, it's not the same thing that you're doing in Philadelphia or New York when you're getting these places that are, selling out sandwiches same day and they're getting fresh. I know Angelo's in South Philly, like he's in there in the morning making the bread for the day, and like that's why there's other reasons why the sandwich is good, but it's
Right.
like, if you got something that's going to bring, if you're looking at a sandwich being a home run, and then the bread makes it a triple, like, and then
Exactly.
everything else is just over the top with it. It's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are doing that.
It's all about the ratio too with the bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate getting a sandwich and it's like all bread and there's like a little bit of meat. And I remember going up to New York and seeing them like open up a loaf of a baguette and sitting there ripping all the bread guts out of it and making the sandwich. I'm like, what are you doing that for? But I understand now. It's just
there's an art to it.
The perfect ratio.
And how much meat you put in it. You can't
Yeah.
just, some places will have lesser meat and then they'll just jam 2 pounds of meat in between an okay piece of bread. And you guys really dialed that in. Is that from just selling sandwiches in Hellertown, or like where did you come up with the style you did it, or is it mostly your mom?
I don't know.
I think it's both of them working
I think
together.
it's me and my mom work really well together. But I think like I can remember like the love of like cooking and sandwiches like came from like even like my grandmother, who would make a sandwich for my grandfather for lunch, and she would like load it up with like garlic marinated peppers
Yes.
and banana
So good.
peppers and ham and cheese and salami, and that's the Italian side. So
Yeah.
I mean, this sandwich was like killer, and I'd be like, "Grandma, like, can I take a bite?"
Yeah.
She'd be like, "No, this is for your grandfather for work tomorrow." And then my mom would come and pick me up from my grandparents and take a massive bite out of the sandwich and be like, "I got to make sure it's good." So yeah, and I remember that like it was yesterday, and I think like crafting a sandwich and making sure that all the pieces are quality is important. And then my mom, who's constantly coming up with amazing things, like her sandwich is the Maria's Choice, and it's like it's an Italian chicken cutlet with pimento cheese, bacon, and tomato. And I mean, that I mean, that sold
That's
out like
amazing.
immediately. It was crazy.
How fast is the buzz coming now with the sandwiches?
It depends on if I post social or not. Because if I post on social, it's definitely gonna sell out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have people, if I don't post it on social, people are like, "What's the special?" Like, I get phone calls. "Oh, what's the special?"
Do you do
special?
what is it? Once a week you do them, or do you change it up? Or
It's once a week, and that special runs for the week.
yeah. And then what if it sells out? Like, do you have to get more stuff, or when it's
The only
done,
thing
it's
that
done?
sells out is the bread. So
Yeah.
like, I have the stuff to make it. I got tons of, whatever, but it's the bread that sells out.
And then you don't want to order too much bread because it's fresh. And then if it doesn't sell, it's going to go. So you have to really walk that thin line of like, you don't want to over order.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I remember going over buying other bread to make it from Modern Crumb, and like, here, let's just put it on a Kaiser or something, and we'll make the sandwich. And then you look at it like, yeah, this isn't us. This
Yeah.
is what we do.
Yeah.
Like, it's better just to be out. We just do something really good and do it right, or don't do it at all.
So now what size batch are you having to order from her?
I just upped it even more. But with one of the baguettes, I get 3 sandwiches out of it. And then we also sell like a loaf, which is better for like if you're gonna take home and make your own sandwich.
It's a batard.
Yeah, batard.
First time I said it's a batard, my daughter laughed at me.
I was like, what? Wait, what? Like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to call it that.
I want to start wrapping up. I don't want to hold you guys too long. I know you're a busy man. Where do you see with things going into the future? Where do you see Sailors being at, in the next 5 years?
I just see us being a destination to go for a good steak or whatever, great sausage. I mean, we only try to do things right, only get the best stuff in. I don't need to be huge. I don't want to be huge. I want to be personal. I want you to come in. I want to know you by your name. Say, hey, how's it going?
I like that, because if you got too big, you would be turning into the thing that you hated with being corporate, and then it would be too hard, and then you guys control it, and your atmosphere there is very unique and special, and getting it any bigger or making it what you walked away from would just be ruining everything that you did.
I like meeting the people. I really do. I like being out there and knowing what the customer wants, what they want, talking to them, figuring out what they need. I mean, my wife calls me Chatty Cathy for a reason.
That's good though, but but that's one of my favorite things about going there is that you are personable. So it's like I knew going in there I could just start spitting with you about hamburgers, and then where you steered me was where I should have went, and I was like, cool, I'm glad I have an expert to talk to, because I'm not pretending I know anything about this other than the timing of cooking the burger.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you what you want, or I can tell you what you want to hear. I mean, some people come in, they don't have the open mind. This is what they want to do, and you try to say, well, I don't think that's the best way to do it. But some people are receptive to that, and some just. So, I mean, I'll give you what you want. If you want, you do whatever you want for you. Yeah,
less of a headache. I want to thank you both for coming on. I'm glad you got involved because you were a little nervous in the beginning, but you were perfect for. To add into I think it's also important that you're on because you're part of the story. So I want to give both of you time, or whoever wants to plug the social media and all that, and kind of what you guys have planned coming up for summer. But I'm excited to have you on. Chris passed, but he spoke extremely highly of you, and I've always wanted to meet you by how much of a standard he held you to. With that being said, I just kind of want to give you guys time to push social media.
Sure. You can follow us at Saylors & Co. on Instagram. And actually, we just started a TikTok.
I saw that. It's good, though.
So social media is like the last thing on top of everything else I have to do right now. But it's still a creative outlet for me. So I still like to, make sure that we have a presence of some sort out there. And I know Reels and the videos are what the algorithm favors.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I started doing Reels, and it goes out like... My buddy was like, hit Reels, and then like what I get on a video post as compared to what a Reel does is like you're tripling the numbers. Yeah, and I mean, we have 2 Reels out, and I was like, oh my God, it triples, and it's favored. So it's a creative outlet, and there's so much inspiration from all the other creators, content creators. So it's fun for me when I get the chance to do it. But yeah, you can follow us on TikTok now, on Instagram. I also didn't realize how much food And there is a spot for food on TikTok, which I didn't know because I don't really mess with TikTok. But now I'm kind of seeing I'm seeing avenues where I'm like, okay, because I mean, social media is a job, and like I'm sure you finding the time to post sandwiches and all that, like in between working, like it's not easy. And then to take on new social media when they're like, oh, here's a new app, and I'm like, So once I kind of saw TikTok getting their own lane, and then I did see you post some TikTok stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. There is a lane for that.
Yeah, I mean, I have the background of the marketing. So I have old coworkers that can even like help me with, because it's constantly changing. All right, and it's a full-time job in its own. But yeah, there's definitely a food TikTok area. Like the feta pasta, like I sold out of feta cheese, and I'm like, why? And I see all this feta pasta, like where you bake a piece of feta with cherry tomatoes and you just sprinkle it with olive oil and you put it in the oven, and it's like the stupidest, simplest recipe. And I was like, let's level this up, Mom. Like, let's get some Saylors sausage. Let's do some garlic, oregano, and I kind of like did a level up feta pasta challenge kind of thing, and it took off on TikTok. And
that's awesome. What's TikTok? It's just at Saylor Company.
Yeah, it's just at Saylors & Co.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll have that in the link. And I'll put all that stuff in the bio and everything when I put this out. And like I said, I want to thank both you guys for coming on. This was fun. I definitely want to get into projects. I'll let you know when we're doing the pop-up and all that stuff. And I don't know. It's a cool relationship. I'd like to keep it just because you had one with Chris. So it kind of like brings that full circle. If you're a first-time listener or somebody who's not following, you can get everything on neveragainstudio.com. I have all the apparel there, all the web stuff's up there. You can watch the YouTube audio and video right on the page, or you can go to YouTube and subscribe, or just search Never Again Studio, and it's on Spotify and everything else. I never know how to close these. I thanked you too many times already, so I'm just going to end it out. And thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.